Student in physical education is considered to be the measure of success in learning, strengthening, perfecting the motor action, and as well as for the transmission of competence, knowledge, and skills. It is generally acknowledged that communication lies at the heart of education. And as literature states, as frontline ambassadors of knowledge, teachers need to find effective ways to communicate with students in order to create a support environment where everyone can thrive. In this context, the whole brain teaching model is considered to be such an effective teaching strategy, knowing that each person and student has its own way of interpreting and processing data, hemispheric dominance being very important. Ned Herman is the father, the creator of the whole brain teaching approach. And he mentions in his metaphorical model that the brain is composed of 4 interactive quadrants. Mainly, the upper left quadrant, the lower left quadrant, the lower right quadrant, and the upper right quadrant of the brain. Taken together, these 4 specialized parts form a whole brain, which profiles a person's way of thinking and behavior. For most people, when the upper left brain, that is with A, is activated, they are very good at performing logical, analytical, and they can solve problems, mathematical problems, in a very effective way. When this sector is activated, the people can easily manipulate numbers, figures, and quantities very easily. In contrast, when the upper right brain is activated, the person tends to be imaginative. They tend to find innovative solutions for the problems. They perceive things holistically without reducing things or actions to individual components. This side is, when this side is activated, the creative spirit is emphasized, and this part is mainly used by the creative persons for the artistic persons who are interested in music, sculpture, painting. When the B sector, when the lower left side is activated, the people are very organized. They live according to a specific timetable and schedule. Everything must be organized in steps and ways of action. And they like to do a lot of to-do lists. And every step of the actions must be well planned and established. They pay attention to detail, and they are very concerned with maintaining control over their emotional state. When the C side, the lower right side of the brain is activated, people like to communicate and be a part of the group. They are keen on interpersonal relationships and easily perceive nonverbal signs of interpersonal problems. They are concentrating in connecting with other people, and they feel very good in a group. They also pay attention to emotional connections, and they are very empathetic persons. The 4 quadrants work together, but with 1 or 2 taking the lead. Each specialized mode has its own language, perceptions, and way of knowing and being. As a result of proper training, different categories of preferences for the 4 quadrants of the brains can be modified. A measure for the brain preferences is the Hermann Brain Dominance Instrument, which emphasizes a person's profile of thinking and behavior. Based on the students' results at the Hermann Brain Dominance Instrument, physical education teachers can optimize communication with them by tailoring messages to their brain preferences. Estimates from the Hermann Brain Dominance tells us that almost 60% of the population tends to fall into more than one of the 4 areas, upper and lower left, respectively upper and lower right quadrant of the brain. Also, it's very important to note that there is no better preference than the other. Knowing the brain preferences of the students or of the athletes and adapting to them improves communication and interpersonal relations. Some strategies for communicating with different thinkers and thinking perspective. When communicating with a person who has a left cortical preference, that is for logic, for numbers, quantities, for mathematical operations, be prepared to answer detailed questions and provide additional information if requested. Use figures, use numbers, percentages, and quantities. Provide structured and organized information in a clear and concise manner. Highlight also the logical and the practical benefits of your ideas. With the practical thinkers, with the ones that are organized and well planned, communication can be improved if the situations are presented in an organized way, with strict procedure established before. The recommendation of the specialists are to provide clear timelines and deadlines for all the actions and for the completing all tasks. When communicating with this type of persons, you can avoid abstract or theoretical discussions, prepare the information in detail, and an organized, methodical, and have a carefully well planned beforehand. On the other side, with relational thinkers, communication can be good with them if the affective relationship is a good one and the activity is carried out in a sympathetic, affectionate atmosphere, appealing to and approval. It is best to use stories or anecdotes to support your arguments, and also engage in active listening and take the time to build a personal connection, a personal relationship. With experimental thinkers, with the creative ones who enjoy music, painting, and sculpture, and are very artistic and creative, they are able to multitask. So they may give impression of not paying attention to their interlocutors. But it is recommended to use analogies between different aspects, and also to present several pieces of information at the same time, as these people are imaginative and curious. So they are eager to learn new things. It is best to encourage brainstorming, out-of-the-box thinking. Use also creative language and imaginary, and be willing to take risks because they can find a creative solution, and be prepared to offer new approaches. Modern studies on brain areas and teaching learning activities support the idea that effective pedagogy is the one which takes into account the brain preferences of learners and allow them to understand in their own specific ways. Effective training is often aimed at the brain as a whole and not just one area. The literature says that it is an intelligent way of actions to give each student the opportunity to be intelligent, which is also a smart thing from the teacher's side also. Some examples for this whole brain model approach. One strategy is the collaborative learning. This is an example of activity to assign the students to groups and allow them to use sign languages or gesture to teach their peers a movement or a skill they have learned. This interactive exercise engages the whole brain region, especially the motor cortex, creating movements, and gives the students the opportunity to experience teaching as well learning. An example of activity in physical education and sports which addresses the whole brain, it is mini mystery or scavenger hunt. Because with these activities, besides learning and childhood development, the students find this form of learning incredibly fun. So what can be done? It can be organized 5 or 7 stations with exercises. The students must complete the exercises shown or advise the teacher. And after completion of the tasks, they receive the clues for the next activities, or they receive a prize of some sort. And it can be effective if it is with a limit of time. Another example of exercise is picture perfect. Of course, the purpose is not just communication, but is attention to detail and collaboration. These games take many forms. In one version, the teams formed receive a picture or a set of instructions, and they must recreate it. This activity tests communication skills, attention to detail, and the ability to work together effectively. Variations can include even blindfolding team members or limiting communications to non-verbal cues. About brainstorming, which is often used, brainstorming blitz, it's a form of exercise where teams are given a specific task or challenge and must generate as many ideas as possible within 5 minutes. This type of exercises encourage participants to think outside of the box and suspend judgment, build upon each other's ideas. So as many ideas as possible in a time limit. This activity promotes creativity, collaboration, and the free flow of ideas. Also, a good strategy for enhancing or activating the quadrants of the brain is rapid-fire question and answers. So, at one point in the lesson, we can have a break from the activities, from the physical activities, and ask questions to the students, like the ones in this example. The #1 rule in mini football is, and you have to wait for the quick answers, or doing sports is good for, a good rest is necessary for, or a balanced diet helps me too. So this generates a lot of ideas, and also we can test their knowledge about physical education and sports. Of course, on top of this, we can use the virtual reality experiences. If you have access, it is a very important tool, an effective one, an effective instrument, which addresses the different parts, various regions of the brain. This is another model of communication known as the four-sided communication model or the 4 years model. This is developed by Friedman, Schultz, von Thun, and the model argues that a statement made by a person can have 4 different effects. So each statement contains, whether we want or not, 4 messages. The first is the factual information about which I am informed. The second is a self-statement. The words say something I show about myself. And the relationship indicator, it's what I think about you and the relationship I have with you. And also it shows a request, what I want you to do. So in this model, there is a woman and a man, and somebody is driving. They are in the car, and at some point they are at a traffic light, at a stop, and at some point the light turns green. So at the factual level, someone says the light is green. The interlocutor, the one is driving, can understand at factual level that the light is green, so he will start. At the appeal level, this message can be like the light is green, so get a move on. I should start driving, the interlocutor might think, and pull away from the intersection quickly. On the relation level, because of the non-verbal, paraverbal communication, the light is green must be can be interpreted, you need my help. So the driver can think, oh, he thinks I'm a bad driver. And at the self-revelation part, I'm in a hurry. Okay, so the driver can understand that, okay, he wants to get going. Knowing these 4 perspectives of transmitting and receiving the messages, the information, we can adapt our communication according to the response we receive. This model being a way even to check if the information is well received by the interlocutors. Students, like all of us, have one ear more sensitive than the other. I'm sure that you know students or athletes who interpret even simple messages as criticism or accusations, which means they have a predilection for using the relationship ear. Or other students are constantly expecting direction, advice, instruction from the teacher or from the coach. Of course, they use the appeal ear. Knowing those 4 perspectives helps us to improve the communication and not get to other information until we have asked questions and saw if the information got to the interlocutor as we planned. It is also important for the physical education specialist to know the different types of communication. We have the verbal communications, and the recommendation in this case will be that the specialist has to make his message intelligible, taking into consideration the level of development of the students or of the athletes, and use additional presentation materials which will facilitate understanding. The verbal message must be direct, clear, concise, and the information significant for the moment in which the communication is made. The information provided to the students must be repeated. More precisely, the key aspects of the message must be refreshed. Teachers or coaches must verify if the information has been understood by the students or by the athletes. So in this case, different students or different players must be asked randomly to verbalize the information of interest, knowing that verbalization is a condition of awareness. Regarding nonverbal communication and the efficient transmission of information to students. About facial expressions. Important to pay attention to the lack of expressiveness, because generally this weakens communication with students or athletes. In the competition, however, the impact can be quite different, because the lack of expressiveness can ease the pressure felt by the students or athletes, but there are of course different differences depending on the athlete and the specific features of the sports branch. Visual contact. It is recommended for teachers to maintain eye contact with the students or with the athletes, which allows them to pay attention to their manifestations. The interest of students is higher when the specialist is not immobile and transmits that he is passionate with his work. Regarding the paraverbal communication, it is known that by manipulating the speed of speech, the teacher can influence the students. In context, when the data provided are new to students, a slower pace is recommended. However, it is advisable for the specialists to be flexible, as slow can be boring. Pay attention to the volume, how loud we talk, because there are situations in certain branches of sports in which the existence of disturbing factors in the environment requires the specialist to raise the tone in order to be heard by the students or by the athletes. The inflections of the voice can underline sometimes the key aspects of the message and make it less boring. Besides words, teacher can influence students or athletes by tone, by rhythm of the speech, or even by the breaks that they made, including mimicry and pantomime. Here we can talk about the body language and the specific attitudes adopted by the specialist. All these aspects specific to nonverbal, paraverbal communication can help, or on the contrary, block the students or athletes in competition or in the training process. It is said that since 1971, studies have mentioned that any message is 7% verbal, 38% paraverbal, and 55% nonverbal. So we can easily see that the paraverbal and nonverbal signs, gesture, language, body language, it is very important in physical education and sports. It is effective for the teacher or for the specialist engaged in physical activities to know the possible communication style. The style reflects the person's personality, and we can talk about the assertive or non-assertive communication style, as well as about manipulative or aggressive communication style. The assertive communication style represents the ability to make one's opinions known, and the person who uses an assertive style can easily say what they feel, they want, or they believe without upsetting anybody else. They are calm and confident in voice. They ask for ideas and advice. They propose finding solutions to problems, and they practice active listening. On the contrast, with the non-assertive communication style, the attitude is of flight or avoidance. This is a passive communication style because the persons who use this hide usually from the problems they face, avoid confronting them, delay making decisions as long as possible. They often give up their right to vote. They don't express their opinion. They don't like to assume their decisions or give their opinion to the others. Those using the manipulative communication style are the people who usually stay in the shadows and follow the actions of others, while at the same time they want to influence them, having the ability to hide what they think. Never say what they think, and they try different approaches to make their opinions heard. In contrast to the whole three communication styles is the aggressive communication style. This one is called the attacking attitude. People who fit this typology often behave offensively towards other people. They are always ready to verbally attack and always want to have the last word. They impose their opinion to others by a little force. Well, teaching children or training athletes requires the use of effective interventions. So the training process is a communication process by itself with a permanent exchange of messages between the teacher and the coach. Between the teacher or the coach and the students, or if we talk about sports performance, the athlete. The main purpose of the communication process being to achieve pedagogical objectives under optimal conditions. The teachers cooperate with the students, working together towards a common goal, the effective implementation of the teaching process, and thus the achievement of better results or better health or even higher performance. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Alexandra.
If there are questions.
Thank you for this clear presentation. I will briefly review your presentation. Alexandra çok önemli bir konuya yaptı. Genelde öğretmen iletişimine çok dikkat etmiyoruz, göz ardı ediyoruz. Bunlarla ilgili aslında geliştirilmiş çok iyi modeller var. Alexandra sunumunda da modellerden bazıları üzerinde durdu. Bunlardan biri tüm beyin modeli, bir diğeri de dört yönlü ya da dört kulak iletişim modeli. Bunlarla ilgili öğretim strateji ve örnek etkinlikler paylaşımda bulundu. Bunlar çok değerli. En değerli olanı da kendi çalışmalarıyla, araştırmalarıyla bunları desteklemesiydi. Kendisine tekrar çok teşekkür ediyorum. Şu an sizden soru alabiliriz Alexandra'ya. Now the floor is open to question. Thank you.
Thank you also.
Buyurun.
Hocam bu yaş ilerledikçe bu beyin modelleri ve o dört farklı bakış açısı vardı ya, dört kulak. O açılıyor mu ara yoksa daralıyor mu yaş ilerledikçe düşünme tarzı?
I don't know whether there is real-time translation for the question. The question is about whether there is an age effect for four-sided communication model.
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I will try to answer it as I understand it. So the four model represents the four perspective that every message brings. And studies have shown that the age, it isn't a factor which influence how the statement is perceived. The relationship, the factual, the appraisal part are important. So there aren't as much as the literature showed. It isn't the age and a factor to influence this part. Of course, communication is it's a process that is perfected over time. So we acquire through our experience, we acquire some skills in communication, and we can use it in the relationships with the other.
Sorun, yaşın bu konuda etkisi var mı model üzerinde diye sordum. Doğru mu anladım? Onu bir söyle. O şekilde yönlendirdim kendisine. Teşekkür ediyorum. Başka soru var mı dinleyicilerimizden?
Cevabını çevirmesini istiyorsunuz değil mi?
Evet. Ben yarım olarak anladım. Bir çevre faktörü, takım sporu falan diye anladım ama tam çevir olursa.
Çevreyi Fatih sana bırakacağım.
Yani aslında ben özet olarak için bir faktör olmadığını söylüyorum.
Ama özet bayağı uzun da.
Alexandra, this was a Turkish translation of your answer.
Okay.
Hocam tam çeviri yaparsan seviniriz.
It was a summary of your...
Okay, with further explanations.
Ama tekrar sorabilirim size. Birlikte gidip sorabilirim. Bu konuda destek olun.
Başka soru var mı? Okay.
So no question.
There will be questions, more questions, and we will have more time. Thank you
I
very
will
much,
wait for them.
Alexandra.
Thank you also very much. Thank you.